Hi, this is Siofra Bradigan, and this is Siofra's Magic Alcove. So we went on a trip, and we had all sorts of interesting experiences on that trip. So I was trying to think of what parts of that to share and what kind of format videos or whatever. So I have a couple of ideas. I think the first one I'm going to talk about is the healing of the power spot, because we've been there before in this particular power spot, and one of the things that's different about this power spot compared to others that I've been to is that this one is not well known as being a power spot. Now, when I speak of a power spot, what I mean is a place where several ley lines come together and there's sort of like a buildup of energy in the area. And, there's some well known power spots out there. And I myself went to a medicine wheel in southern Saskatchewan years ago. I think that was 1978 or 9, somewhere in there. I think it was probably 78. And and the thing about most power spots that you'll notice if you come across one, like in nature, where no one else knows it's there, is that there's a rather intense energy field that you start to feel a pressure coming towards. Um, and it's like legs start to feel kind of like jello and heavy, and it gets hard to walk. Air seems thick, sort of like going through molasses. And we break through the veil of the power spot, all of a sudden everything is different. It completely changes. And one of the things about power spots is that they amplify whatever you bring to the place. So if you're in a really good headspace, you've done your shadow work, and you're like grounded and prepared, it's an incredible experience. If, on the other hand, you're just a tourist, or you have some stuff you haven't worked through, or you're in a bad mood, it's going to amplify that as well. So one of the keys to having a good experience at a power spot, of course, is to be in a good space. So this location that we went to, when I discovered it was a power spot, it's not as intense as some other power spots I've been to, partly because this has been used as a place for people to camp with their horses, and they built a cabin right next to the power spot without thinking about it or knowing about it at all. And so there's a large influx of people who are not going there in a sacred way for a sacred purpose, and are bringing all of their usual mental household stuff with them. So we're talking your average Joe who's never thought about having a spiritual experience in his life is going camping with his horses or her horses on this power spot. And, who knows what happens to them as far as it goes. But because of that constant influx of people that aren't behaving in a sacred manner, the power spot itself starts to get kind of mucky. And we went there a few years in a row when I found it accidentally. I can't even remember how. I did not know it was a power spot when I rented the cabin. It was just in the middle of nowhere, and it was a really inexpensive price and something we could afford, and it seemed like a great idea to get away. But we became aware of the fact that something was wrong when Ian was meditating one day, and he suddenly had some incredibly vile and intrusive thoughts that have nothing to do with his background, his personality, any personal experiences or whatever he's ever had or anything he's ever thought about. And so when he told me about that, I realized that this power, that something was collecting them and amplifying other people's thoughts, and not all of them were positive. So that year, I built my first sort of spontaneous cleansing thing with what I had available. I had a couple of wands with me. I think I had my water wand. I had a selenite wand. I wasn't like packed for like a major working or anything, because I didn't know it was going to be there, and some crystals that I had. And when I make a crystal engine, it's not like these things that you see where there's like, a circle or a square or whatever with holes in it, and you're putting like all the same crystal in certain spots and all the same other crystal in other spots, building a crystal grid. I'm building an engine, and an engine requires a lot of different parts, and it's an energetic engine, so I have to think about the influences of what I'm bringing to it. And selenite I like using in this regard because it brings that light energy. It's kind of like solidified light force, and it raises the vibration of anything that's there and sort of clears out any lower vibration kind of energy that might be around automatically. And I remember that visit, we had some very odd dreams. It's like dreaming on a power spot, you never know. But there were some pretty strange things going on that year. And so I sort of intuitively put this thing together and let it work, and it helped. And we actually made a lot of progress with our own clair development that year. I started seeing the large figures in the sky, and I also saw the fairy folk out in the field. I saw through time at one point and saw a herd of some kind of dinosaur sort of walking by in the past. It was pretty interesting. So there's no doubt in my mind that this is a power spot and that it has a powerful effect on the mind that's ready to experience it. So since we hadn't been able to be there in a long time, been years from before COVID, and I was planning this trip and was thinking about going, I thought I really should bring more stuff with me, because since it's been a lot longer since we've been there, there might be more stuff to clear out, and with all of the energy going on in our country and so forth, figured it could be kind of intense. So I brought mostly all of my wands. I brought all of my planetary wands, and I brought 2 of my elemental wands, the air wand and the water wand. I also brought my banishing wand that I had redone. And to backtrack just a little bit, I didn't have all those wands made when we did the last trip anyway, so they wouldn't have been available. I suddenly was inspired to do all these planetary wands, so I now have one for every day of the week, which is, awesome in my book. So they all came. So I had a number of wands with me, and I also had a basket, and I just plopped a bunch of crystals in there that seemed to want to come along, crystals that I had had for years that said something about who I was, etc. I had Spirit tell me I needed to bring my raven feather that they had given me when I was last there. So I brought the raven feather, and I actually wore that with the crow feather that my local friends had given me in my hair when I constructed my crystal engine. And I've put pictures up, and maybe we can dig one up and put a picture up in here. I'll let Ian know, because he's the one who's good at figuring that stuff out. Maybe in the comments or something of what I did. There's a series of pictures. I put it on my Facebook page, put it in my group. So anyway, it was pretty interesting when it was after I set it up. So this is what I did, and I actually made a diagram of what I did. So I could remember. I mean, just looking at it wasn't enough for me. So I started off at, if you're facing outside of the cabin, I started off on the left side of the picnic table, at the bottom end of the picnic table. And all the energy I went through that end and went through all the stuff I put there in the table and then out the other side. And what's interesting in the pictures is the first picture of that end of the table, there's a very large blob. At first I thought it was a camera artifact because, that can happen, and I don't like to jump to conclusions. But if you look at the series of pictures, that blob is everywhere, throughout the entire series of pictures in different locations. And the sun is in the same spot. I'm moving, I'm facing in different directions completely. The blob is still there. It changes density, So at the end of the table, when it's leaving, it's a much lighter sphere of energy. And it's not the big, huge blob of stuff that started, which I figured was a pretty good, I don't know, evidence maybe that what I did worked. So back to what I did and why I did it. So I started off at the base of the table. I have a tiger eye ball on a little stand. I've had this tiger eye for quite a while. It sits next to me, next to my bed. And tiger eye is good for reflecting negative energy out. And then right in front of that tiger eye, I placed my banishing wand, which is to eliminate negative energy. I think I probably talked about my banishing wand in the wand video, if you want to know more. And then, so that was the very first thing. So it starts off going through the tiger eye and the banishing wand to start eliminating the negative energies. And then I put the Saturn wand and the Mars wand sort of opposite each other on either side of the banishing wand, sort of a little bit forward, so that there's like a little space between what the banishing wand and the tiger eye are doing before it gets to the next set. And in between the Saturn wand and the Mars wand, I have 3 pieces of selenite that are all heading in that direction. So sort of cleansing the energy. The banishing wand goes straight into the selenite, and then the selenite is surrounded by the Saturn and Mars wand. And I picked them, because Saturn is all about boundaries, creating boundaries, and Mars is about power and strength and energy, and protection. So it just seemed like the natural thing to do. And I follow my instincts a lot when I'm building these things. So then, in the next section, I did 4 wands side by side, so parallel to each other, in front of these. So I started off on the outside. I had the lunar wand, and then the Venus wand, and then my water wand, and then my Jupiter wand. So I have all of my water wands, basically, water elemental kinds of things. Because lunar energy is watery, Jupiter energy is somewhat watery, sort of expansive and so forth. And my idea here was that the other wands were clearing out the negative stuff, and now anything that's left over is sort of being the emotional. I realized later that the first set of wands is like physical earth reality. The second set is like the astral plane. It's all about emotion, which would be the water. And in this section, on one side, on the outside of the lunar wand, I put my blue kyanite, and on the outside of the Jupiter wand, I put this quartz crystal that I was given when I went to Hawaii for the harmonic convergence in, I think it was 1986, on the Big Island. I'll have to look up the dates for that, but I think that's about when it was. And I was given that. That was like a special gift from the group whose ritual I was at. And so it has meaning for me, and I've had it for a long time. So it seemed like a good thing to bring. And then in this section, above those crystals, again on the outside, I put the amethyst points. I got 2 amethyst chevrons for me, and then I got 2 what they call, I think they called them rose amethysts. They're kind of like a little clump, kind of look like a flower, for my granddaughter. And for one of the projects that we had for this weekend was to leave a crystals, one crystal of a pair that had been magically and energetically joined together. And when I got those crystals, I wire wrapped them together, because I like to really deal with visual kind of stuff. And when I'm wire wrapping 2 crystals together and saying these crystals are now connected, that's kind of what happens. And I did that for mine and for my granddaughters. And so I put them there because I wanted them to be part of this, because the idea was for us to connect to the energy of the place so that we could bring that energy back with us in a tangible form and have an easier time reconnecting with that energy to continue our progress in between times we can visit. So that was the middle. And then at the far end of the table is the mental plane and my air wands. So I have my Mercury wand, my air wand, and my solar wand. Those are the three wands that are at that end. And in between those two wands, or three wands, there's a piece of selenite between each wand. And then on the outside of the wands, on the Mercury wand side, I put a piece of green apophyllite, and on the solar side, I put a piece of clear apophyllite, just to sort of bring that energy together and to throw it stream, to clear the thoughts and the minds and spirit and so forth. And then all of that energy went through to a piece of celestite that I have, which I love that stuff. That stuff is so much fun. And my staff was at the head of the table. So the whole thing goes from the tiger eye through the Saturn Mars wands, through the water wands, through the air wands, and the celestite, and into my staff. And it felt good. I liked it. And when I took pictures, like I said, it's like every picture I took of the table, there was some kind of energetic mist that appeared on the camera. So I didn't expect that. So then I waited for a period of time for it to cook. I think it was pretty much all day. I don't think I took it down for a while. I just wanted to make sure that it was doing what it needed to do and finished its job. And at some point, it felt like the right time to take it down and to take it apart, which I did. And it seemed to have worked really well. We weren't harassed by anything negative from that point and so forth. So it was pretty cool. So that was what I did with that. All the stuff I saw all kinds of things when I was there. But since this is mostly about crystals, I thought I would continue on with the idea of the crystal. So I actually went one day, apparently it was on Saturday, the 26th, I decided to try and experiment with my crystals and to see how much information I could get. And so trying to figure out how to do it, what I did was I tried to make myself clear and centered and grounded. And then I put a crystal in my palm and closed my eyes and then sort of scanned inside my body, inside my energy field, and so forth to see if I was getting an effect, what kind of an effect it was, how did the crystal make me feel, and so forth. And I haven't actually compared what I got with what's in my book until now. So the first one I did was a piece of black kyanite, raw kyanite that I have. It's sort of like a fan shape. And when I first put that in my hand and closed my eyes, I saw a male figure that reminded me of The Thing, kind of rocky-ish, except it was black. It was strong and square-shaped. And I saw the crystal behind my head, like on my back, with long black tendrils going up in a fan shape, repelling anything bad and protecting me. So that was the energy I got from my piece of black kyanite. So let's see. GKL kyanite aligns all chakras automatically, used consciously to open chakras, aligns emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, ethereal, and astral bodies, stimulates communication and psychic awareness, etc. This is mostly for the blue kyanite. However, the black kyanite grounds the body when aligning the chakras, and during or after meditation is all I have on that one. So I thought that was interesting anyway, as a visceral sort of experience. So the next crystal I did, I had to clear myself out of the first crystal so I wouldn't contaminate the next one, was the piece of green apophyllite that I had. And it's like chunky cubes that are together. It's a nice dark green. I have two different green apophylites. One's a pale green and one's a dark green, and this was the dark green. So I cleared myself. It's a very translucent kind of crystal, and I saw an elf figure, two faces coming together in a gentle kiss, unity, a feeling of calm, serenity, nice green color in my mind, makes me breathe deeper, sense of calm, seems good with nature spirits and for healthy relationships of all kinds. So that's what I got from that. So what does my book say on apophyllite? Creates conscious connection between physical form and spiritual realms. Facilitates attunement to one's body as well as to the higher dimensional life forms. Supposed to facilitate astral travel, helps with self-awareness, self-reflection and evaluation, can assist in channeling when in pyramidal shape. Said to have saving properties, the light-colored apophyllite, light at the end of a dark tunnel. Apophyllite is from the Greek meaning flaking off. Has a calming effect, effective stress reducer, releasing mental blockages and negative thought patterns. Universal love, sort of sounds like what I got. Releases anxiety, worries, and fears, calms and grounds the spirit, assists with Reiki healing, works on the breath. That's interesting because I'm breathing deeply and wanted to do that. And when held to chest, can stop an asthma attack. The green activates the heart chakra and promotes a forthright heart, absorbs and transmits universal energy, releases hypnotic commands and other control mechanisms from present or past lives. So that's kind of interesting. So that sounds like a pretty strong hit. And of course, just to say here that everyone's experience with crystals is going to depend upon where they're at, what they need, whether the crystal is opening up a blockage they're not ready to deal with, or is helping to release a blockage they are ready to deal with, and stuff like that. So then, cleared my mind. Then I did the green velvet malachite. Green velvet malachite is cool. It looks soft. It looks like it's fuzzy and you touch it and it's not because it's a rock. It's a very rough stone, beautiful green color, very deep in places, light in others. Looks like soft velvet, nature spirit. Feels very much in harmony with all of nature. Calming, grounding, muscles relaxed, palm and foot chakras activated, and calmed my breathing. So that's interesting. So I started to have some activation of my different chakras there. I started to notice. Malachite is not something you're supposed to use for a mineral elixir unless you use just the polished stone, because it's got some toxic metals in it. So it's called the Stone of Transformation. Assists one in changing situations and clearing and activate all chakras, stimulates heart and throat chakra, clarify emotions, release negative experiences, equalizing and balancing agent, clears the path of obstructions, protects deviators, treats vertigo, asthma, arthritis, swollen joints. Egyptians say the goddess of the sky drops stars on the earth in the shape of green stones, which is kind of cool. And in alpine regions, used to help expectant mothers and women in labor. Symbolizes understanding of self and others. So interesting. Not quite what I got, but still, it's interesting anyway. So each stone's a little bit different. So then I worked with a blue opal. Let me get to the opal section. P. I made this book myself. I went through my books and I thought, you know what? I need to be able to access this without having to get all my books out. So I went through all my crystal books and the crystals that I did have and wrote them down in separate pages, so you can see this is kind of, you know, what it is. It's a 3-ring binder kind of a thing. So I recommend stuff like that when you're doing research. You want to be able to find what you wrote down later without too much difficulty, and I have it alphabetically ordered, so yay. I have fun. Okay, so I really liked the blue opal, I remember. It's smooth, small stone, nice iridescent sheen. It was very iridescent, really nice and shiny in the sun. Activates the third eye, saw a golden color shift to blues and greens. Themes could travel through realms of spirits. I saw a female face. I felt spacey, definitely not grounding. Might be able to access different times, like through the Akasha. A small hawk returned, and I watched it with binoculars. So apparently I had a visit while I was in the middle of that. So the opal is called the stone of happy dreams and changes. Zeus's tears, amplifies one's traits and characteristics, provides inspiration and imagination, strengthens memory, instills faithfulness and loyalty, hiding in plain sight. Blue opal, emotional soother, realigns to spiritual purpose, resonates with throat chakra, and can enhance communication. Interesting. Okay, so next I did a raw hematite. Where is H? Here we are. It's different than the standard hematite because it hasn't been polished. So it's more black than gray. When it's polished, it has that, you know, gray metallic sheen. Of course, it has a lot of iron in it. In fact, in ancient times, the Egyptians used to use a piece of hematite and file off a small amount of it as, like, you know, little particles, and then wet them, and then the iron in it would rust, and then they would use that as rouge on their cheeks. So it was one of the first makeups. So raw hematite, shiny, not polished, black with silver shine, dark face, inside black sphere with radiating black spikes, spines, rays, immediately felt in my feet and legs, root chakra, made me straighten my spine, bones maybe, and raven cawed in the distance. So that was an interesting experience. And in here they call it the stone for the mind. Helps the body to stay cool, mental attunement, memory enhancement, original thinking, technical knowledge, attracts kind love, helps attain soft meditative state, smooth grounding, and brings tranquility and emotional clarity. So, like I said, it's like individual responses to these things are going to depend upon a lot of factors. So then I did ruby fuchsite. I think I have that in here. Not sure if I do. There's a bunch of different ruby matrices that you can get. Peacock or petrified wood. See, I have a lot of rocks. EQR, okay. Rhodonite. Ruby. That's just plain ruby. Ruby and kyanite. I think I don't have ruby and fuchsite. So we'll just have to tell you what I got. Without comparing it, I'll have to look that one up. Yeah, I don't have the fuchsite. Okay, so this was interesting. It was a small tower, wider at the base than at the top. It's a fuchsia-colored ruby spots, beautiful shades of green. Made me feel like I needed to move. So I took a walk and did some stretching, stopped and took a break, and we'll resume later. Activated sex and hara chakras, the below the belly button chakra. Makes me alert to sounds around me, heightened senses, feel my spine and muscles. So that's what that one was. So then aventurine, and this is the trick when you're doing all these in a row, to make sure you're clearing yourself out. So that was definitely an exercise in and of itself, to be sure that I was getting a accurate reading. But it helps if you know, being a body worker and having been aware of my own body for a long time and really paying attention to my signals and so forth, makes it more accurate for me, I think, in the sense of how it affects me directly. Just like everyone has different allergies, different foods, sensitivities, things that work well with them and things that don't. There's something about aventurine, I really like it. I just bought a bracelet, a green aventurine bracelet, and I just fell in love with it. And it was like, ooh. So anyway, so sparkles, nice olive green, a female form with long, dark, curly hair. Activates third eye, throat, and heart chakras. Soothing, warm, activates healing energy and palm chakras. So that's what I got from it. In ancient Greece, it was sewn into the clothes of men going to war to preserve courage and optimism, said to enhance sense of humor and cheerfulness of its possessor. You can use as a shield to protect the heart chakra. Provides balancing of male and female energies. Balance and align intellectual, emotional, physical, and auric bodies. Used in medicine wheel ceremony to show the heart of participant to spirit guide. Positive stone of prosperity, reinforces leadership qualities, promotes compassion and empathy, encourages perseverance, stabilizes state of mind, stimulates perception, and enhances creativity. So, promotes a feeling of well-being. So that, in the green aventurine specifically, comforter and heart healer, general harmonizer, protects the heart, settles nausea, dissolves negative emotions and thoughts, all-round healer, bringing in well-being and emotional calm. So that sounds pretty much like what I felt. The healing energy, third eye, throat, and heart chakras, the soothing warmth, and so forth. So that's pretty cool. I always like it when I get things right. I'm like, yay! So the next one, kyanite. All right, I had a piece of green kyanite. I've had a bunch of different kinds. We, have the black kyanite. I have a blue kyanite and a green kyanite. So it is similar. This one is not blue, even though kyanite is Greek for blue. So lots of sparkle, pale olive green, thin slab like a spike, smaller and almost pointy on top versus the bottom. I felt in my crown chakra, and I got mental clarity, a feeling of light joyfulness, an image of children laughing, like innocence and purity. So I have the green kyanite listed in here. I have blue and black, and not the green, so I'm going to have to look up the green kyanite and see what it says. That one didn't make it in my book. All right. Then I had a nice piece of ametrine. I'm not sure if I have ametrine in my book either. I'm finding out what I need to add. I have amethyst. Ametrine, of course, is a combination of amethyst and citrine. So that's not in there. So ametrine, combination of amethyst and citrine, has dark and pale amethyst in the yellow citrine inclusions. Balanced male-female energy, third eye and crown chakra, would assist during scrying, also assist in distant healing and mental travel. That's what I got from my ametrine. Of course, quartz, the quartz I had was the crow gift that I got. They left it on my lawn where I feed them before we left, and I brought that with me. And so we know quartz has got all kinds of properties, but this is a specific quartz because it was given to me by, a being, a crow being. There's the sound of geese making that wonderful sound. As soon as I picked it up, there were actually real geese. these were unusual geese. They were not Canadian geese. I don't know what kind of geese they were. They were very, very large and very melodic, kind of a sound between a purr and a honk. It was interesting. I'm still trying to figure out what kind of geese they were. But I thought maybe the quartz helped me commune with birds, since when I picked it up, I immediately heard birds. I had a joyous feeling, makes me smile, warms my heart, acceptance, feel at one with nature, second sight activating, see a fae near me, large head and face and body, somewhat squat, changed shape a few times after I saw him and finally settled back in original form. Some seemed surprised I wasn't startled. I thought maybe it was an ogre or a troll. After I saw the actual troll, I'm thinking it was not a troll. Too small. And then the last one I did, I have a large piece of polychrome, which is a type of jasper. And it, I already know pretty well what it does for me. It helps me to separate out my different bodies, my physical, astral, mental, and spirit bodies. It just sort of delineates the energetic shift from one to the other. It reminds me of galaxies and stars in the night sky. It's just a wonderful piece of crystal that I like to work with. So that's one of the things that we did with crystals that I brought with me while we were there at the cabin. So, hey, I'll see if I can get the pictures up of the event on the video, since I've got the pictures downloaded. We should be able to do that. And so you'll get to see that fuzzy thing, whatever it is, whether it's an artifact or not. Pretty interestingly placed. So this has been Siofra's Magic Alcove, and I'm Siofra Bradigan. Blessed be.